The evening in the park. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, and the scent of fresh grass filled the air. John stood by the fountain, nervously adjusting his shirt sleeve. He was sure Olya would come. She couldn't miss their meeting. Olya was walking along the sidewalk, holding a small book in her hands. She smiled when she saw him. "Hi, John," she said, stopping beside him. "Hi, Olya. You look wonderful today." John felt his heart beat faster. They sat down on a bench near the fountain, and John took 2 hot cappuccinos out of his bag. "I thought you might forget," Olya smiled. "Never. Even when I'm busy, you're on my mind," he replied. Their light conversation began with books, music, and plans for summer. With every word, they felt something special growing between them. The evening gradually darkened, and the park filled with the soft light of the street lamps. John and Olya sat on the bench, savoring their cappuccinos, and the conversation became more personal. "You know," Olya began, "I've long wanted to go to the sea, to relax, to disconnect from everything. Have you ever been?" "Yes, last year I went to Odessa with friends. It was incredible," John smiled. "The sea, fresh air, sunrises. What do you prefer, the sea or the mountains?" Olya thought for a moment. "I think the sea. You can relax there. Mountains are more about challenges, overcoming yourself. Maybe I'm not ready for such adventures yet." "You can start small," John said, looking gently into her eyes. "We could take walks together, discover new places." Olya smiled, feeling her heart beating faster. "I like that," she whispered. Suddenly, the laughter of children playing near the fountain rang out. They exchanged glances, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. "You know," John said, "sometimes life is like this walk in the park. Unexpected, bright, and best when you have someone to share the moments with." Olya nodded without looking away. "Then let's share." They hugged, and the world around them seemed to glow with new colors. The next morning, Olya woke with a warm feeling in her heart. The previous evening left a bright trace, and she couldn't wait to see John again. They agreed to meet near their favorite city cafe. John was already waiting, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Good morning," he smiled when Olya approached. "Good morning," she replied, feeling a light flutter. "I thought today we could stroll to the botanical garden. The flowers are blooming and the air is so fresh." "Perfect," Olya agreed. They walked slowly, admiring the flowers and talking about future plans. "Have you ever dreamed of something that seems unreachable?" John asked. "Like what?" She smiled. "Maybe a big trip, a new beginning, or just finding someone with whom you can be yourself," Olya pondered. "Maybe so, and maybe it starts right now." They exchanged a warm glance and the world around seemed magical again. They found a cozy bench near a small pond where ducks. The next day, John suggested a trip outside the city to escape the noise and rush. They went to an old forest clearing where the sun shone through the treetops, creating golden patches on the ground. "I often come here when I need to think," John said, unpacking a small backpack. He took out a thermos with hot tea and 2 plastic cups. "Herbal tea?" he offered. "Perfect," Olya smiled. They sat on a blanket, drinking tea and listening to the bird song. Olya felt this moment was like a little celebration, with no place for worries. "I'm happy you're with me," John said, looking into her eyes. "And I am," she replied, sipping the warm tea. The silence between them was pleasant and easy, as if nature itself supported their connection. Suddenly, a butterfly flew by, and Olya, unable to resist, stretched out her hand to touch it. "Are you always this gentle?" John asked, smiling. "Only when I'm with the right person," she replied, and rested her head on his shoulder. They sat on the blanket, holding each other, when John suddenly took out a small box. "Olya," he began, "these past days with you have been the best in my life. I want you to know I'm ready to walk any path with you." Her eyes widened and her heart beat faster. "This is for you," he said, opening the box, inside which lay a delicate silver necklace with a small heart pendant. John It's so beautiful, she whispered, smiling happily. Just a little sign that you mean a lot to me. They looked into each other's eyes for a long time, and between them a hidden thread connected their hearts. The next days they spent almost every free moment together. John proved to be not only a romantic, but also a caring listener. Olya shared her deepest dreams, and he shared plans for the future. One evening, walking along the river, Olya stopped and looked at John. You know, I never believed you could feel such a connection with someone so quickly. But with you, it's different. He smiled and took her hand in his. That's because we're both open and honest. And that's what makes our love so real. They stood holding hands, watching the sunset paint the sky in gold and pink. A feeling of warmth and hope filled their hearts. One evening, when the city was quiet, John and Olya sat on the roof of an old building, watching the flickering lights in the distance. I'm afraid, Olya suddenly confessed, leaning into John. Afraid of what? He asked softly, gently holding her. That this feeling might be temporary. That suddenly everything will change. John looked into her eyes, holding her hands warm and steady. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know one thing for sure. Right now, I want to be with you. And if we're meant to walk this path together, I'm ready to fight for it. She felt her anxiety slowly fading, dissolving in his words. Then let's not be afraid. Let's just live this moment. They sat silently, feeling that true closeness is born not from grand words but from quiet support in the hardest moments. The next morning, Olya woke with a slight feeling of doubt, but also hope. She knew not everything would be easy, and that true feelings sometimes require trials. When they met, John immediately noticed her thoughtfulness. Is something wrong? He asked, taking her hand. I'm just scared, she admitted, that sometimes people say one thing but think another. That our dreams may not match. John looked deeply into her eyes. We're not perfect, Olya, and I don't promise everything will be easy, but I promise to be honest with you, even when it's hard. She felt his words reach deep into her heart, and doubts began to retreat. Let's just try together, she said softly. Together, John confirmed, smiling. They hugged, realizing that true love is not only bright moments, but also the willingness to walk side by side when it's hard. Several weeks passed, and their feelings grew deeper. But life had its surprises. One day, John received an unexpected offer to go on an internship in another city for a few months. He came to Olya with a sad look. I don't want to lose you, he whispered. But this opportunity could change my life. Olya silently looked at him, trying to hide her pain. You should go if that's what you want, she said. I support you. They hugged tightly, understanding that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Promise me we'll stay in touch? That this isn't the end for us. I promise, John replied, feeling his heart tighten. It was the beginning of a new chapter, a test of distance, trust, and faith in their love. As weeks passed, the distance between John and Olya felt both surreal and real at the same time. They talked on the phone every evening, but it wasn't the same as when they were together, sharing small moments in person. The feeling of absence sometimes weighed on them, but their bond never wavered. They exchanged letters, each one more heartfelt than the last, and sent little surprises in the mail to remind each other that they were still there. One evening, as Olya sat by the window, watching the sun set, she received a message from John. It was a simple photo of a sunset from his new city. The colors were vibrant, but his words made her heart skip a beat. I wish you were here to watch this with me. The next day, John called, his voice filled with excitement. I've been thinking, why don't you come visit me for a week? We can explore the city together. It'll be like a mini adventure. Olya's heart raced at the thought. It had been weeks since they were together, and the idea of seeing John again, of sharing a moment in a new place, was exactly what she needed. I'd love that, she said, smiling as she packed her bags in her mind. They spent the next week exploring the city, walking through its cobbled streets, sitting in quaint cafes and talking for hours about everything and nothing. The distance between them had somehow made their connection even stronger. It wasn't the same as before, but it felt just as real. Each moment with John was a reminder that love could grow despite distance, despite time. On the last day of her visit, as they stood at the edge of the river, watching the boats drift by, Olya turned to John, her eyes full of affection. "I feel like we're building something really special," she said softly. "Something worth fighting for." John smiled, taking her hand. "I feel the same way. No matter where life takes us, we'll find our way back to each other." As they hugged tightly, the sound of the river flowed peacefully around them, as though nature itself was giving its blessing. They knew there were still challenges ahead, but they also knew that they would face them together. The love they had built was real, and nothing would take that away. And so, even though the days apart continued, their hearts remained tethered. It was in the quiet moments, the shared conversations, the small gestures, and the promise that no matter where life took them, they would always find their way back to each other. True love, they realized, was not about perfection. It was about finding someone you could trust with your heart, even when the road was uncertain. As the months went by, John and Olya's love continued to grow, even in the face of the physical distance that sometimes seemed insurmountable. They found new ways to stay connected: late-night video calls, surprise care packages, and the simple act of sharing moments from their day. They often spoke about the future, dreaming of the day when the distance between them would no longer be a challenge. One evening, John called Olya, his voice filled with excitement. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about the future," he said. "I think it's time for me to come back. I've learned so much from this experience, but now I want to be with you." Olya's heart fluttered. It was the news she had been hoping for but hadn't dared to expect so soon. "Are you serious? You really want to come back?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes," John replied. "I've realized that no matter where I go, no matter what I do, it's you I want by my side. I don't want to wait anymore." Tears welled up in Olya's eyes as she smiled, overwhelmed by the depth of his words. "I've always wanted the same thing," she whispered. Over the next few weeks, John made arrangements to return to the city. They talked about finding a place to live together, about the little things they would do, cooking dinner together, waking up to the sound of each other's voices, and simply being in the same space after months of longing. The day John returned was filled with anticipation. Olya waited at the airport, holding a bouquet of flowers, her heart pounding with excitement. When she saw him step through the arrival gate, her breath caught in her throat. He was smiling, his eyes searching for hers. Their eyes met across the crowded terminal, and time seemed to slow. She dropped the bouquet and rushed toward him. Without a word, they embraced, their hearts racing with joy, relief, and the overwhelming feeling of finally being together again. "I missed you so much," John whispered into her hair as he held her tightly. "I missed you too," Olya replied, feeling the warmth of his arms around her. "This feels like a dream." They spent the next few days rediscovering each other, picking up right where they had left off, but with a new understanding of how precious their time together truly was. They explored their city again, not as tourists, but as people who had learned to value every moment, no matter how small. One evening, as they sat on the roof of their new apartment watching the stars, Olya turned to John. "You know, I've learned a lot through all of this. That love doesn't always come easily, but it's always worth it. Even when we're apart, even when things are uncertain, it's still real." John smiled, squeezing her hand. "And it's worth fighting for. Always." They sat there in comfortable silence, knowing that the road ahead would still have its challenges, but together they could face anything. They had already built something beautiful, something stronger than distance or time. In the months that followed, Olya and John continued to grow together. They faced the everyday hurdles of life, but they always did it side by side, knowing that their love was their greatest strength. They traveled together, visited new places, and learned more about each other with every passing day. And even though life was never perfect, they had discovered the secret to happiness. That love, true love, was about being there for each other no matter what. No matter the challenges, no matter the distance, and most importantly, no matter how much time it took. Because love, when it's real, always finds its way.